Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're playing the chess.com chess piece bots for the month of September, from the 400 elo pawn to the 2700 elo queen. Let's get started with game number one. Alright, game number one, we get the white pieces against the 400 elo pawn, who has boxing mittens on and is very aggressively saying, hey you think pawns are pushovers? We'll see if he can back up his smack talk with proper chess play. Now, the last time that I made a episode about these monthly bots, I asked you guys if this was something you wanted to see recurring on the channel, considering that bots don't necessarily play very much like humans, and chess.com doesn't really do anything too crazy with them. It usually just changes their picture and what they say. But I think we all decided that since it's only pretty much once a month, and just for the novelty of seeing what funky thing they come up with, and possibly being a constructive episode, we would give it a try. But today, I actually have another reason for playing against these bots as well, which is that the top-rated bot, the queen, is rated 2700. Now, those of you that are familiar with chess.com's history of bots know that they usually give a very strong bot as the last one because it's supposed to be pretty much impossible to defeat. So it'll be rated 3000 plus, 3400, 3200, something insane. On the lower end, sometimes it's rated 28, 2900. But this month it's rated 27 and change, I believe 2730, which is really interesting because that makes me feel like I might actually have a chance against that bot. At one point in the channel, now this was months ago, so at the very beginning of the channel, I played against the Gotham bot, and I had a series where I was trying to defeat the Gotham bot, and the Gotham bot is rated 2500. Now that series was pretty amusing because I believe for 3 episodes consecutively, I had only draws against that bot, which I was quite excited about considering that bot is rated 2500. But as I became more familiar with chess.com bots and how they actually work, I came to learn that those bots are generally very overrated, considering you can play something of just an even game, and eventually the bot, because it can't play perfectly, it cannot play like Stockfish, eventually it has to make some sort of minor error. Funny enough, the bot on screen at the moment is a terrible example of that. The pawn rated 400 has yet to blunder any material that I've seen. We are going to threaten mate in 1, which it does stop. We do get to grab that g6 pawn on the way. Go ahead and pick that up. But my point was that even though the Gotham bot is overrated, and that's true for all of the bots are overrated, that's actually a good thing because that means that if this bot is rated 2700, and that is a free knight, then it might actually play at a much lower level, maybe 2400 or so. Now, do I think I can play at a 2400 elo level for an entire game? Maybe not, but I can play some sort of anti-bot opening where you create a whole bunch of pawn chains and make it very difficult to break into the position, and then I might actually have a shot. So I was thinking, not only are we going to do this for the novelty of the characters and maybe because there can be some constructive value, but also specifically for this episode because I might actually have a very loose chance of defeating that bot. So that's kind of exciting. Now, as far as pretty much the first 3 bots, I believe, you're pretty much just playing for blunders. You're just waiting for them to blunder some sort of material, trying not to make any silly moves. I've not gone out of my way to create any particularly powerful attacks. I mean, I loosely brought my queen over with my bishop, and that seemed to win us a pawn. Gonna play check and centralize the knight once more. King goes back. Sure, we've created an outpost for the rook where it can threaten the bishop. That right there is another free pawn, but I'm gonna threaten the bishop first. Oh, that's pretty interesting. It offers a rook trade, which does get the bishop out of danger. Sweet, but then we pick up, oh wait, we can't pick up the pawn. The rook is defended by that same knight. Okay, so we'll just shuffle back and create a little fork instead. Oh, we get skewered. This bot is not messing around today. 400 elo, you say. Okay, the king moves back, which means we can get our knight to safety, although we are getting forked. Oh, okay, it completely ignores the fork and drops the bishop instead. Now, it's just a matter of capturing all of their pawns, promoting, and then giving a very classy ladders mate. Nice, and with that, we ladders mate the 400 rated pawn. Let's go to move on to bot number 2. All right, bot number 2 is the knight rated 850, who says, be warned, I'm the bravest challenger to ever enter the ring. Also with his little boxing gloves. I love the little 8-bit sort of characters. They're very cute. Okay, as far as being constructive goes, for the opening, I'm just going to play relatively solid. It's sort of like a London, but with the black pieces. I'm gonna try to get the bishop out, play e6. I want this sort of triangular pattern. And besides that, I'm just waiting to see if the opponent makes a mistake. I mean, that's at least how a lot of human games sort of end. Oh, they go queen b3 with the b7, d5 sort of double attack. I mean, I could move the bishop back and defend, but to be totally honest, I'm not very afraid of the spot, so I'm just gonna play knight d7. Should they take, I have e6, and basically I am gambiting this pawn to see if they waste more tempo to take it with the queen, while I continue my development and inevitably castle, at which point I'm developed, I'm castled, and they are up a pawn, but not developed or castled, so they're not ready for an attack, but I would be. Now, they don't lean into any of that. They play knight to g5 instead. A very bot move, not really sure what they're going for. If they sacrifice, I have to take my hat off and tip it. That would be absolutely bold. Not effective necessarily, but bold. We get h4. Wow, they are going for the attack. back, you can see we've now castled. We've developed all of our pieces. They are making some sort of miscellaneous moves. We're going to go ahead and boot the knight back from whence he came, knight back to f3, and we'll go ahead and give them one last chance to take this pawn. Now with the idea of rook to b8 and then entering on the second rank, they play bishop to e3 instead, and now we will take the very clear sign to start advancing on the queen side. We get rook to c1, and again, we're castled, we're developed. I don't need to play, 3000 elo chess. I just sort of need to play relatively decent moves. So we can see there's a nice outpost here on c4 where the pawns defend it. So we're going to play knight to b6 and allow that knight to find its way to c4, rook to h2. Again, very bot move. Go ahead and centralize the knight, and without us doing anything too crazy, the bot itself starts to tangle its own position. We're going to go ahead and play a little bit of a sneaky move, queen to b8. And what we're looking at here is the pawn on g3, which it actually does defend, but blunders a pawn in the process anyway. So the original idea was, let's go back with just one move. Say they had played something totally random like a3. The idea is that this pawn is overworked. It defends g3 and d3, and I'm already targeting one of those. So if I can just target the other, the pawn has no way of doing both of those tasks at once. So I could have taken the bishop, which is a fair trade, and removed the defender of the g3 pawn, and then come in with the queen. At that point, the rook would cover, knight to g4, the rook drops, exciting attack, blah, blah, blah. But the original idea was to grab this pawn. Now, the bot does defend it with knight to e5, but now we can just take. There are two attackers, and there was only one defender. Even better, we get f4, which doesn't even bother recapturing the knight, so now it's a completely free piece, and on top of all of that, we have knight to g4, which is a fork. Okay, bishop goes back. We'll go ahead and pick up the exchange, which is what we call it when you get a rook and the opponent gets a minor piece, so a bishop or a knight. And now that we're up a piece, forget the exchange, just the fact that we are up a piece alone is enough reason to start hunting for trades, and if we can simplify into an endgame, it should be relatively easy to win. We get pawn takes back. Now this is a weakness. Whenever you have an outpost in front of a backwards pawn, meaning there are no other pawns behind it that it can defend, and it is never able to push, or else it's simply free. So we call that a backwards pawn. That is a weakness, and a very large one at that. So we're going to go ahead and just double up, or even triple up potentially, to go ahead and put some pressure on that c3 pawn to get queen back. Now we could triple up, but after this exchange, there's now a much more creative way to do it, which is rook to a3, defended by the bishop and hitting it from the side. We get e4, which is apparently a desperate move, which seems to just be a free pawn. Of course, we'll pick it up, and the bishop slides back. We'll go ahead and grab what is rightfully ours, which is that pawn on c3. Now there's also a scary attack on the king. We'll see what the opponent does. They play h5. Okay, doesn't address b5, which they could take. Doesn't do anything about the doubled rooks on the third rank. Just a smooth, casual h5, sure. In that case, I guess we'll just push b4, get this pawn out of danger, and it's now supported by the bishop and the queen. Not to mention it is a passed pawn. There are a lot of pieces on the board to be too worried about promoting, but it's a cool idea. Okay, queen and king are now on the same file. Don't mind if I have a look-see with my protected rook. So now we pick up the free queen, pick up the pawn on d5, and again, back to looking for trades. So let's play check. Maybe they'll cover with the rook. That would be nice. Oh, they cover with the bishop. We're up so much material that doesn't even matter. We can just take with the rook and go for the simplification, right? They take back with the king. Let's play check. Gets the bishop out of danger with tempo. King moves out of the way. Check again. And I would not be surprised if we could check the opponent until it's mate. Let's push this pawn. We're now threatening check and then mate on a2. Yeah, rook to e5. We have check and mate. With that, we defeat the knight. Let's go to move on to game number 3. All right, the next bot is the bishop, rated 1300. We get the white pieces again, and I'm going to do pretty much the exact same thing. We get knight to f6. Oh, I forgot to mention my rating situation. It does say that I'm 2400 because that is my bullet rating. I'm 2400 bullet. I'm not 2400 in any other time control. At the moment, I think in rapid I'm 2000 and bullets 21, but just barely. So technically 2400 in the very vague use of the number, but not in the way that you're probably thinking. The bishop says that yes, that seems to be the best move. According to my very expensive chess coach, these little thingies can go 1 or 2 squares sometimes. According to his very expensive chess coach, poor guy. Queen to c8 forms a battery staring at empty space, which is very amusing. According to my calculations, the queen is a pretty good piece. Okay, I'm starting to understand why they gave him glasses. This guy seems to always be calculating something. We'll play bishop to d3, just pointing at the king side. c4 closes the center, and I generally really enjoy playing closed center positions. As a sporting fellow, my hobbies include dressage, water polo, and yelling at waiters for no reason. Yeah, maybe we could not do the last one. But the reason I like to play with the closed center is because a closed center is very good for flank attacks. Imagine that if the center were like Jello, it would be very easy for pieces to fly through, and there's really no good base for an attack to stem from. But if the center is more like a brick, now obviously it's never going to be that stiff and impenetrable, but for the sake of the analogy, if the center is like a brick, then the only only place that the pieces can flow, in fact, I'll use a different colored arrow, it would be on the side of the board. So when you have that sort of brick center or closed center where the pieces can't really traverse, it lends itself to flank attacks. And those of you that have watched the channel for pretty much any amount of time know that I am a big fan of kingside attacks. Yet bishop to f5 offers a trade. They're wasting a lot of tempo, which I'm taking advantage of to develop my pieces. We get pawn to b5. Oh, and now we simply have e4 with the fork. Nice little blunder. I think we even had that before as well. Queen d6 is a cool little defense, right? The pawn can't capture because it's pinned to the king. The issue being that I can just break the pin, and now once more, I'm threatening to capture these pieces. Oh wait, bishop g6 is super amusing. Oh wait, what happened here? If I take, the queen would take with check, I would take back, and then bishop takes c2. Oh, and they're actually not losing anything. That's super strange. I guess knight to g5 then, booting queen first. How about the queen just moves out of the way, and still, should I take? The opponent would just take back with the bishop. I don't know, there's knight to e4, bishop takes, queen takes. That seems like a pretty fun position to play. I just don't know if it's really any good. I think for the sake of taking advantage of the fact that we're ahead in development, we should be looking for ways to play into the center of the board. So we'll go ahead and take this knight. We'll bite the bullet. The bishop does take. Let's go ahead and play knight to e4. Bishop to d3 is a free queen. Holy smokes. I swear the 400 rated bot has played the best so far because we can take now with check, which means the opponent has to address that move, and then I can just move my queen out of the way, and suddenly I'm up a queen, which is super interesting. Go ahead and pre-move the recapture for the knight. I assume it will at least take that, okay? Consider that pawn a token of my frustration for your game. How about the queen? Can I consider that a token of frustration? We take the free pawn on h4, take back with the bishop, and once again, a little bit boring, but when you get to a real game, sometimes boring is the inverse of stress, so it's welcome. Now, the boring thing being that we're out material, so we look for trades. So any trades pretty much are welcome. I might even just trade this rook for the bishop and the pawn just to get that pressure off of my position. I'm threatening b5 as well should the knight take on d5. They protect instead first, which makes sense. So we will return the favor, protect our own pawn. Rook shuffles over. Let's go ahead and activate this bishop, start creating some weaknesses on the opponent's king. We'll slide the bishop back, threatening d6 since the pawn is pinned to the king as well. And this rook is having the time of its life, doing the dad bod shuffle back here, pretty much just trying to hold together the entire position. We'll play the queen back to target that pawn once more. The bishop develops with a little spite check. We'll go ahead and just shuffle out of the way. Okay, rook moves back over to b8. I mean, it just loves moving around back here, I suppose. We'll take on d6 now with a threat of mate on e7. Whoa, the king shuffles out of the way, which allows us to take, and take on c7 as well, which is checkmate. Sweet. We've defeated the bishop. Let's go to move on to bot number 4. Okay, our next game is against the rook rated 1800 and the last bot before the 2700 rated queen. Now, I said that for the first 3 bots, I was just going to play a mostly solid opening, try not to blunder anything, and just develop all of my pieces and castle, and eventually those levels of bots would eventually blunder. To be honest, I'm pretty sure I can extend that reasoning up to the 1800 elo bot. As long as I don't blunder anything super silly in the opening, I kind of just develop my pieces, I can go for some trades, I can castle, then I should be in a pretty good spot. Ooh, okay, the bot goes to close the center again, just like the other bot did to us, which is good. You can see as the position sort of starts to define itself, you can sort of start to create more concrete plans. So right now, I'm going for this e5 center push, 1 to grab a little more space, and 2 to give this bishop some future along any diagonal, because right now it's just trapped. Whoa, castles, are you trying to humble me? Oh, you're gonna feel humbled after e4, which is just a fork, which wins material. That move was cold-blooded. I am glad that you agree. Queen takes back, we'll play rook to e8. Knight to f8 here is a very, very classic idea. It's a good defensive move, covers h7, even though this knight does that too. This one might actually want to go towards the center. So the knight here defends h7, it could reroute to g6, target the queen, target this h4 pawn that has miraculously appeared there. Although that is not a motif, that just happens to be on the board right now. And as you can see, this bishop now has some life as well. Let's go ahead and just play knight to e4. I wonder what they're going to do about a knight in their face. They're going to trade, which is exactly what we want. So their kingside attack has now been reduced to a queen and a lonely pawn, which is unlikely to bear much fruit. So we're going to continue looking for trades. This is just attacking a tempo. Oh, we get pawn to d6, which actually does give us a trade because now they have to take the queen. We'll plant our knight on an outpost targeting the rook and then defend to f5 so the knight can hang out on d3 just for a little longer. Ooh, f3. f3 looks to undermine that e4 pawn, which defends the knight. It's now attacked doubly, but I can take on e7 and now defend doubly as well. We get pawn to b4. We'll develop the bishop. We want to get this rook into play as soon as possible, perhaps even for a trade. Again, we're up material, so trades is exactly what we want. Okay, the rook finally does grab our knight with a nice little undermining tactic there. there. We'll play the rook back. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. We're up material. There are rooks fighting for the open file, so either they give me the open file or they trade the rook. The bot decides to trade the rook, which is a fair call, and now I'm going to defend the bishop with my king and grab the other open file. Nice. So again, it decides to fight for the open file again, which allows us to have another trade. Now we're simply up a bishop in the endgame. We're just going to capture their pawns and mate them with a queen. As you can see, we've now captured all of the opponent's pawns. They do still have this pawn trying to make a break for it, but it will be eternally defended by this bishop. Now the king is behind this pawn, which means considering pawns move one square at a time and the king also moves one square at a time, it will never catch me. So this pawn is now the fastest kid on the playground, making its way down to the c1 square. The king is in hot pursuit, but we'll go ahead and sack for the pawn on e6, grab our queen, and find mate. In fact, I think I can pre-move it. I think this works. Okay, it's not letting me pre-move much further ahead, but with that, we do grab our ladder's mate and defeat the rook, apparently with a great move, hopefully ours. Okay, with that, we've defeated the pawn, the knight, the bishop, and the rook. The last one is the queen, and hopefully we have a good game. Let's move on to the queen. All right, naturally, I gave myself the white pieces to play against the queen, who says, why, if it isn't one of my beloved subjects, bold enough to appear in my court, I am bold enough. Thank you for noticing. We're gonna play d4. I just want to play a solid game. I just don't want to get bamboozled from the get-go like I often do by the 3,000 plus elo bots, who will literally play h6, g5, h5, h4 like as the first couple of moves and defeat me anyways. We'll play e3. We're just gonna try to play normal, healthy chess where the pieces are developed. The king is castled. You can see it's already inviting me. It's like luring me into unorthodox positions where should I capture, there would be a doubled pawn in the center on move 5. So no thank you. I'm just gonna move my bishop back. If they want to trade, I'll trade back and I'll open up my rook, but we'll be playing the position on my terms. Not on, there we go, they do capture, but not on the bot's suspicious doubled pawn in the center terms. We get pawn to d6. We'll develop the bishop, apply some pressure on h7. Whoa, e5 from the get-go. Threatening e4. We'll go ahead and cover that square. Pawn to h6. We'll play queen to e2, and I like the idea of a queenside castle here. Bishop to g4. If e4, we still can just take, so we'll castle queenside, and then d5 forces us to take, or else e4 wins the pinned knight. So knight takes. We'll move the bishop back, and again, I think so far so good. Pawn to a6. Okay, I believe it's looking for b5, b4, which is a little bit scary. I have, by choice, pretty much entered into a race with a bot. Holy smokes, who says I won't even dignify this piece with a comment. Does not like the pawns, apparently. I've entered into an arms race with the pawn, with the bot, because they are castled king side, I'm castled queen side, and the natural flow of events would suggest that my idea is now a king side attack, and the opponent's idea now is a queen side attack. So I'm going to start by doubling my rooks on the h file. That way I get my rook out of this pin. And the last step is to get my queen out of the pin as well. Queen to f1 is very brute force, but it does accomplish the mission. Now we're targeting the knight, which seems to just move out of the way to c6. Now, as far as continuing this attack goes, I think we'll play knight to h4 with the idea of bishop to f5. Eventually, the knight might even have a sack on h6. Whoa, d4. The bot seems to be looking to open up my king side, which is a rather scary idea. I'm going to go ahead and fend off as long as I can and sort of ignore it. Go for the bishop. The bot captures. I pretty much have to take back. You can see my queen side, king side, whatever you want to call this. My castle is in shambles here. There's queen takes c3 on the board, and unfortunately nothing has materialized from my attack quite yet. Yeah, the queen takes with check will shuffle out of the way. Knight to b4 looks horrendous, but they just take the free piece, and I will throw a Hail Mary attack here, see if I can make anything spawn out of nothing. I have a pretty bad feeling this is just about over. Yeah, knight to e4 looks for this fork on d2, which would win the queen. We'll go ahead and take here with check. Again, might as well throw a Hail Mary attack its way. Oh, and knight to d2 forces me to capture anyways, because the queen all by herself traps the king. That is a resignable position. I have no choice but to take. We'll take on h6. If the bot blunders mate on h8, then I will be speechless. Sure, check. Yeah, the king comes up to f6. It can escape through e7, and the rooks can never see it on those ranks ever again. Forced mate here in 2. All right, we'll resign this game. I want to give that one more try, though. One more try. Give me a rematch. This time, instead of castling queen side, I'll castle king side instead. I'm assuming it plays the exact same moves. Play pawn to e3. Bishop to d6. It sure loves this opening. Ah, the gift of an inaccurate move. Thank you, dear subject. Is this inaccurate? It might be. Probably because this is objectively worse for black. But the problem is when you're rated 2700, nothing is objectively worse. Everything is just something that your opponent doesn't know how to play. The opponent being me in this example. The other thing I could could do is just hold off on castling. I mean, well, no, it's looking for e5 anyways. It's clear as day it's looking for e5. I suppose just lining up the bishop on d3 was already a bit of an error. Let's play bishop to b5 instead. e4, sure. We'll try to put some pressure on that pawn. We get bishop to f5 to defend. There's something weird going on here. There's like d5, which removes the knight, queen to h5. That doesn't quite work. There's g4, but the bishop can take, so even though it weakens the pawn, it hits the queen. Let's do this. We'll play queen to a4, target the knight. Ooh, pawn to h6 counterattacks. I'm going to take on c6. I will weaken the pawn structure now that we are developed. We get pawn to h6 anyways. Knight goes back and we'll reroute to f4. Now threatening a free pawn on c6, which is pushed to c5. Now should I take, I open up this d3 square, which is quite scary in the long run. But if I don't, then the bot can get rid of its doubled pawn with a d4 capture. But I don't think I have a choice but to allow that. Right, queen to b8, we'll just defend. Pawn takes back. Pawn to d5. Now why can't I just play queen to c6? That is not the queen. Queen to c6, targeting the pawn with my knight and my queen, which only has one defender. I don't see a reason why not. Let's play queen to c6. Okay, rook to d8 defends. Better late than never. We might as well castle. And then rook to d6. What a strange way to activate your rook. We'll go and just slide the queen back one square. Maintaining pressure on d5. We get bishop back to d7. Oh, rerouting for this super strong control of the light squares, which I'm not totally sure I can do anything about. So we'll go ahead and just line up the rook, target c7. Ooh, g5. Takes a moment to boot the knight, which I have really no choice but to move back. Yeah, we do get bishop to b5, which was the original idea. We'll reroute the knight to c3. And now since the knight isn't on f4 anymore, there's nobody guarding d3. So it's pretty much just falling apart over here on the queen side. Yeah, what a beautiful maneuver. A normal chess player might even be a little bit cautious about diving in with the queen like this because she could get trapped pretty easily. But no, of course, naturally the bot looks for knight to g4 with a huge pivot from picking up a free pawn on b2 to now attacking an f2 pawn on the other side of the board right next to the lone king. And what's more is I have no way to defend this. I mean, well, I guess knight to d1 works. Actually, yeah, knight to d1 does work. I can cover f2 and the queen. Is this surviving? Queen to e2? Oh, queen to e2. Wow, beautiful. And I can't do anything about that. If I move the knight out of the way to cover f1, which is where the battery points, not to mention his maiden one, then f2 falls. But if I keep the knight on d1 to cover f2, then f1 happens. And again, like we just said, that is checkmate. So there's nothing I can do here. I've been totaled by the queen. Fair play. I really thought I had a chance. I'm not really sure that there's anything else for me here. So we'll play what we must, move the knight out of the way to dodge checkmate for as long as possible at least. I'm sure the queen takes. Yeah, and there's mate on h2 that I can literally do nothing about. I mean, best thing I can do is sack the queen and for one tempo cover h2, but after the recapture, this is game over. Actually, no, knight to e2. Hold off for another tempo. Check. Oh, never mind. I didn't move the king. Okay. All right. With that, we do lose to the queen. I really did think I had a chance, but I guess 2700 is just too far gone. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know down below how you fared against these September bots. I like their little 8-bit thing. It's very cute. And I will see you guys in the next one.